Welcome to the Blender for Blogs video editing series, where I'm teaching you how to use Blender as a video editor. If you want to check out the promo video I made showing you everything that you're going to be learning, I'll leave a link to it in the post. But this video is just a quick video as to why you might want to use Blender as a video editor, and maybe why you don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over Blender's video editing pros and cons, because maybe Blender is for you, but maybe it is not. So let's start with the cons. First of all, it is bare bones, the video editor that is, because Blender is itself primarily a 3D software application used for 3D modeling and animation. But the video editor is added on top of the 3D software program. So it's a secondary or tertiary thing, which means that it's just a very minimal video editor. It's not like the dedicated video editors like Sony Vegas or Adobe Premiere or Final Cut Pro. Those programs are made specifically for video editing. So the next con is it is not very intuitive at times. And what I mean by this is that sometimes you want to do something very simple, but it's very, very difficult to figure out how in the world am I supposed to do this? It's not necessarily the most user-friendly. You can't just be like, oh, I want to do this, and then have it done in a couple of minutes. No, it usually takes hours, sometimes days, to figure out how to do it, especially if there's no documentation on it, which is why I'm making these Blender videos. Okay, next one is that it's wooden. And so this goes along with being not intuitive, but by wooden, I mean that when you finally do figure out how to do something simple, it's just very awkward and rigid. So for example, trying to crop something in Blender. Every other program that I know that has a crop tool is very simple to use, but Blender's crop tool in the video sequence editor is just the weirdest, most awkward, most wooden thing I've ever seen, and it's just a headache to use. Which brings me to my next con, and that it is laborious. So because it is bare bones, not intuitive, and wooden, that means the things that you want to try to do can be very time consuming and a lot of headache. So a very laborious way of going about video editing. So if you are looking for something that's really quick and very easy to use, and you just need a quick fix for something, you might not want to use Blender as your video editor. And the last con that I have is that it can be buggy. And what I mean by that is that it can crash, and it can also be really laggy or slow for no reason. Now, I haven't had Blender crash on me too many times, and the times that it has, it's fairly repeatable, so I kind of can create a workaround for those times that it does. Other times it could just, you can accidentally press a button and everything just goes to crap, and you have no idea what you pressed. You can't find the button. You don't even know if it's a button that you pressed or a slider that you changed. So it can be very finicky like that. So very buggy, very finicky. So those are the cons you want to consider before using Blender as your video editor. Now, before I completely scare you off from using Blender as a video editor, there are some pros, which is why I want to end on the pros for a good note. Okay, so the first pro is that it is open source, of course, and along with being free, it's you get the source code, obviously. So if you are into coding, you can fix your own problems. You can add your own features. If you know, I think it's Python that it's written in, maybe Python, maybe a couple of other things. But yeah, if you're into that, you can change it to your heart's desire. And as we all know, open source means that it's 100% free, which is always nice. And the next one is my favorite. There are no licenses. And this is so nice because I used to use a program called Softimage, and I used a free version at the time. And even that free version that they released had this strict licensing where I could only use it on one computer, and it was a nightmare to try to install, just a headache. It took me like a couple of hours to finally get it up and running on my computer for the first time. And then I couldn't transfer that to any other computers without going through more headache. Oh my gosh, I just hated that. So no licenses with Blender. You can use Blender on as many computers as you want. You can, install it, uninstall it really easily. And another good thing with no licenses means that you can use Blender for commercial purposes. Meaning nobody's watching over you trying to get their piece of the pie. If you want to use Blender to, for sell your product or use it in some sort of training software or whatever, which I really, really like. This is why I use Blender out of principle because of the open source, 100% free, no licenses. I just absolutely love that. Now, when I say no licenses, I don't mean completely no license. I think there's an open source license of some sort that it's on like a public domain license. But what I mean is that there's no restrictions for you using it how you want to use it. Okay, next one. It is lightweight and portable. Blender's pretty lightweight. It can be installed on a USB, and you can bring it around with you everywhere and blend wherever your heart desires. So the next one, that is fast. And what I mean by this is that the program itself is fast. Now it's not always fast when you're editing video or rendering out video, but it loads really fast when you're switching between layouts. It's really fast. I mean, everything on there's really not a lag in the program itself. And the last thing is that Blender is rapidly improving. I mean, today Blender has a lot of attention, a lot of people working on it, and it is really quickly increasing in popularity, especially with the Blender 2.8 just around the corner with the Eevee renderer, real-time renderer. So a lot of people are excited about that. But yes, hopefully in the future, because of its improvements and because of the work that's being done on it, all of the cons that I've mentioned are going to start to be eliminated. So I'm really excited for that, and I'm just partial to Blender. I just like the way it feels. I'm used to it now, so I will continue to use Blender as my video editor as long as I can. So that is why I use Blender as a video editor. Is it for you? Well, that's something you'll have to decide for yourself.